Well, and the reason I asked that particular question is because I was a huge fan of the Expanse books and was fairly aware of the politics of the guys that wrote them, and was surprised endlessly at how even-handed they actually managed to play the macro political games that went on in those books. I'm a libertarian myself, and you know there's a lot of talk of like anarchists and anarchism in there, and I thought they painted a pretty even-handed brush. Just like, yes, big militaristic societies suck. Yes, overly capitalistic, societies controlled by small cabals of, elites suck. Yeah, and guess what? Even anarchism has its flaws. There's different things that work with all of them. So, like, the idea of people being able to write something so well crafted despite their own personal views certainly was like a breath of fresh air, like in today's world where so much of ideology is the core of books and usually ham-fisted at best.
Yeah, I think the mark of a good writer is they're able to write someone who disagrees wholly with their own politics, but who has their own but who, if a reader is reading that character, they can recognize themselves in that. It's not, oh, here's a sock puppet looking like an idiot asshole so that the author can score political points.
I mean, we all, as much as I might like Ayn Rand's books, I also realize they are pedantic as hell. And I guess the rule is just write a good book. If it happens to have libertarian themes, that's good. Because every time someone tries to write a libertarian anything, it always turns out terrible.
Yeah. Or a insert philosophy here, anything. There's I won't name the author, but there's some fellow who came out with a book around when Devin's book published that we jokingly refer to as Republicans Bad, the novel. And it's a sci-fi book, but like it's basically Republicans Bad, the novel. And it's just like even people who agree with that in the reviews are like, buddy, this is just too much.
Right on. Now, you two, how long has this book been out, and how long have you been working on the raising awareness, building up Devin's profile online? How long has that process been going on so far?
Yeah, so the book launched on 11/11 of 2023. So it's been about 7, 8, something like that months. I don't know, math. And started trying to raise awareness, a little bit before it. The number of pre-orders we had, it wasn't particularly impressive. We had some. We had pre-orders, but it's what might be, depending upon a day, it might be 1 day of sales, it might be 4 day of sales. It's within that range. And Devin, most of Devin's buyers become aware of Theft of Fire through Twitter. I've sort of long been a bit of a Twitter addict, watching it and stuff. And so decided like, okay, I'm going to have an account that's me personally, as Christine Eriksen, because anyone who I'm friends with on there, I want them to be able to just mute this account so I don't drive them insane. So I created an account. I was like, hey, Devin, you should have an account too. And around that time, Elon had purchased Twitter and had introduced the concept of long tweets, so more than 280 characters. And Devin is a loquacious fellow. He is not someone easily contained to 280 characters. So I think he was on there a little bit before that feature rolled out, and it was just maddening for him, because he's got things to say and he's just like too constrained and very frustrated with the website. But then once it became a place that's a little more like, okay, you can have a long conversation, which is his preferred conversational mode. He just sort of went off. And so he had a rather public disagreement with a well-known figure around the new year, so in December. And that sort of took off because Devin is sort of uniquely able to shape the feelings and thoughts people are having into words that make them go, yes, that's what I've been thinking. So he went from, maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000 followers to like 20,000 basically overnight. And now he's, I don't know, more than double. He's 40 something. I don't know. He's some number of followers. And delightfully interesting people because he's a thoughtful person who seems to attract thoughtful, interesting.
Well, and honestly, he's in the wrong business. He should be doing copywriting because for as long as his posts are, I'm not someone who likes to read long posts. And I can't tell you how many times I've been tricked into just like following the rabbit hole down on one of his posts. Before I know it, I'm like, I'm sitting here for half an hour reading this thing. Like, and I never left Twitter. Like I'm still on the site. I didn't have to go read somebody's blog to get it. It's just very compelling. I have to get to the end of this thing because it's just written in such a way as I just keep being interested.
Yeah, no, and we're actually working with his book editor to sort of extract some of his long posts, sort of combine them for flow and clarity and combine them on topics and stuff, and move them into a more durable location on Substack. And that way, people will also have the opportunity to give Devin money because he is paid by Twitter, with their monetization. But there's a lot more monetary upside to Substack.
I'll ask the question: if you're talking Substack, and with the level of followers that he has, why wouldn't he just build his own site and monetize it? Especially with like the history of the finances of Substack.
I think Substack is decently pro free speech. Actually, the CEO of Substack follows Devin on Twitter. So if he gets canceled, he'll have a direct line and be like, "Hey, what happened to me?"
It's not the canceling that I'm concerned with. It's the Substack still being here in 2 years issue because of the ability to keep the website profitable.
Oh, I wasn't aware there were any issues there. Well, if they can't do it with the economies of scale, I don't see how he would be able to do it as a single person. And the reason we're interested in Substack instead of spinning up his own pay-per-view, pay platform or something is just like, I'm a software engineer and I know how challenging that would be. There are a lot of very good features built into Substack, including discovery. That is its own little ecosystem that allows people to share articles in a way that is a lot more natural and findable than just his own website. Alas, it's no longer the heyday of the 90s where people are just visiting individual sites all the time. Platforms have really taken over. And so if Devin were to only publish his words on, devineriksen.com/blog or something.
Well, I'm not saying only. I guess my point is the end goal should always be your own website because you control that. Like the idea with platforms is they're a good place to corral people to go to where your actual product is. I guess is the way that in the marketing world, that's the way we're trained because why should I be giving all of my money and splitting with other people when I could be selling the real product here and giving someone just like the finder's fee, I guess.
Well, for this, we do actually get access to the email addresses of people who subscribe. So we can export that. And if
Substack's good about that. I use them for my own website. I pull them off of there and use my own autoresponder.
Yeah. And like I said, this is more just a monetization opportunity. Devin has this content already on Twitter that he's put out there for free. And so we told his editor, hey, we'll split Substack revenues with you if you help us just sort of make things to put out there. And yeah, it's a nice platform with an existing audience and community that both people who follow him on Twitter can then migrate over there and then spread news of his Substack to their sort of existing social networks on there.
And I'm curious if given that plan, have you thought about actually taking it a step further and releasing a book of the long form musings of Devin? I bring that up because I hate Substack. Like everything about it annoys me. It's a terrible medium for reading anything, and I use it only because I realize other people are there.
Fair. That actually also is a longer term plan. It's not something we want to take away from Devin's time right now, but after we collect things on Substack, then they're still ours. We'll be able to then collect them and say, okay, now they are in a nonfiction book form. So hooray.
Good. Hopefully people learn this. So that's if you ever go to one of those guys like, I will help you make a book in 9 days or 2 weeks, and that's always the first thing it is. Well, why don't you just start taking your Substack articles and then we'll get them all nice and edited, and then you'll have a book of Substack. So it's good. You're thinking long term. You got the pieces in the puzzle. Part of the reason I have you on is because I know what you're doing is working, and so many people out there are banging their head against the wall right now with things that aren't working. And so it's good to talk to someone who's actually gotten traction and turn that into something.
It's definitely scattering seeds. You throw something on the ground and you hope it's going to grow, and it can be a little frustrating because there are certainly plenty of things that I've tried that have not worked out. And there's things that do kind of work out, but in a sort of incremental way of A leads to B leads to C, and oh, look, C is great. And I wouldn't have been here without A, except A didn't feel useful at all. And just the fun ways little things can play off of each other. So
I'm curious, what are some things that you thought for sure would work and then produce zero when it was all said and done?
There is a very interesting person who has been gifted a copy of Theft of Fire by one of their friends. And I'm hoping this person, who has a large audience, will read it and love it and talk about it. And they haven't yet. And I don't want to say who it is.
No, that's fine. The scenario is enough to.
Yeah. Let's see. What else? Just some, occasional things where it's like, oh, look, there's a mention over here that hasn't really converted to sales very much. I would say Devin has had a lot of podcasts, YouTube, etc. appearances, some of them on platforms that are very large. And those only, they convert a little bit to sales, but not as much as you would expect.